Hello there, this is Alana Tuckey. I'm lead faculty for Math 131. And in this tutorial, I'm going to show you how to make the graphs that you need for your Math 131 project, but in Excel 2010. Now, if you're working with the more modern Excel, which is Excel 2013, it looks a little bit whiter on the screen, and this little ribbon up here at the top might not be there all the time. I will make another video that shows you how to do the same thing with that version of Excel. But right now I'm going to show you the older version of Excel, which is Excel 2010. Okay, so let me go back to the project, and it says we want to create 3 identical scattergrams of T and the population density. You're going to need to make sure that you have axes, labels, and scaling and all that good stuff. Then you're going to add trend line. You're going to add a linear trend line, an exponential trend line, and a quadratic trend line, one to each of those graphs, and then make sure you have labels and titles and all that stuff. And then you're going to print each graph and attach them to the back of your packet. Okay, well, it sounds tricky, but it's actually pretty simple. So what you do is you'll highlight your data right here. You'll highlight your T and your people per square mile, and you'll go to Insert, and you want to click on the scatter plot right here. You want to pick this top left graph right here. And that's what it'll look like. Okay. All right. And then you'll want to delete this and so on. Now, I'm not going to show you how to do it on this particular one because that would just be doing way too much for you. So I'm going to do a different data set, but it's the same basic concept. So I have here the heights and arm spans, hypothetically speaking, for some cartoon characters that we know and love. So I'm going to do the same thing. Pretend this is your data. You highlight your data with your mouse. So click on the top left corner, drag your mouse down, then you can lift up when you reach the bottom right corner. You click on Insert, click on Scatter, and click that scatter plot. All right, then you want to delete the arm span part, that legend over on the right-hand side. You just click on it and press delete and it goes away. And now we've got some work to do because we need to have some labels attached to these and some other stuff. So I'm going to start by, I don't really like these colors, so I'm going to click up here. And you'll notice when you've clicked on the chart, you'll see it up here, a menu kind of appears with 3 options, design, layout, and format. Those are not always there. If I click off of that chart and onto the table or onto one of these cells around here, see how they disappeared? But I click on the chart and poof, they appear again, the chart tools. All right, so let's think here. I want to click on design first of all. I'm going to click on this little menu down here and I'm going to pick, oh, I don't know, purple with a background. That looks nice. All right, then I need some titles because I'm supposed to have titles on my horizontal and vertical axis. So I'm going to click on layout. I'm going to click axis titles. And I need a primary horizontal axis. I'm going to put the title below the axis and I'm going to label it. So in this particular case, this is the height in inches. Always want labels with units if we can have it. I'm going to click off of that title. Then I'm going to go click on axis titles again. I'm going to click on the primary vertical axis and click rotated title. And this was the arm span in inches. Oops. You can see it's actually, this one's typing up here, which is fine. Then I press enter, and there it is. And then I'm going to label this. Actually, you know what? I'm going to hold off on the label. I'll be back for that in a second. But there we have the basic gist. So you have height, you have your arm span. If you like, you can right-click on these numbers down here. You can add major grid lines. It'll make it kind of more of a grid when you look at it. And you can fiddle around with colors if you like. You can right-click and select your data, and you can fiddle around. Oops, not there. There. Format data series, that's what you want. So you can change your line colors, change your marker colors, you know, fiddle around with what you want things to look like, what color you want them to be. But I personally like that quick design menu. It's kind of nice. There's some options in there if you really want to get funky. But remember, you have to print it. So I wouldn't recommend the bottom ones because even though they're kind of cool to look at, they don't print very well from a nice printer. All right. Then we're just going to do it again and again. So I'm going to highlight, click Insert, Scatter, pick Scatter, click on the arm span and delete it. I'm going to pick different colors for each of these graphs. Now remember, you've got to print them, so you don't want them to be too funky colored. I mean, the orange one's nice in theory, but you're actually going to need it to print. If you right click on these numbers down here, you can add major grid lines. Then you got to click on layout and add axis titles. So I'm going to add height in inches, enter. And then I'm going to click axis title again. I want a vertical axis that's, vertical axis that's rotated. I'm just letting my mouse hover and then I click on the rotated. And then you can double click in here and say you want arm span in inches. There you go. And again, we're leaving the titles blank right now. We're going to change those in a minute, but we're not done yet. We're going to have to do this one more time because you're going to need 3 graphs. You need one for the linear, one for the exponential, and one for the quadratic. All right, let me click down here. I'm going to pick this one, delete this, and again, layout, axis title, vertical would be arm span. I did the vertical one accidentally first there, but that's all right. Arm span in inches, horizontal, title below, that's fine, height in inches. So whatever it is for your problem, you put that in there. All right, move the graphs around because you need the 3 of them to kind of be separated. You can't have them all covering over each other. So I just put them over here, whatever. All right, then you're going to need to make one of these linear, one of them exponential, and one of them quadratic. The way to do that is to right-click on the data points. It should select all the data points. And you want to click Add a Trend Line. And right up here, I'm picking linear first. See how it says linear up at the top? That's what we want. But we want to go down here and click on Display Equation and Display R Squared at the same time. I want both of those on there. Let me see, if I go to line style, I can even make the line a little bit thicker for width. I can fiddle around with the color, but it's going to show up black, which is probably for the best. I'll say close. And there's the line. Now this is kind of small and weird and hard to look at, so what you can do is kind of click on the little box and drag it over. If you click on the home screen, you can change the font size for it. You can make it bold by clicking on the little bold icon, which is good because you need to print this out. You need it to show up nice. So make it a little bit bigger font and make it bold. All right, then let's go up here and change this. This is the linear model for, and then for me, it's arm span versus height. Okay. Yours will be different, but you want to say, the linear equation or whatever. And by the way, if you type too long, it'll make it, I don't know how to say it, it'll make it like that, which is fine. If it ends up being a longer title, it just happens. It's all right. All right, now we're going to do it again. So you go over here to this one, you right click. So I clicked on the dots, I right clicked, I add trend line. This time I want it to be exponential. I still want to display my equation and my R squared, so I click on those two, close. All right, and again, I want this to be bigger font, so I'm going to click, how about 12, but I want to make it bold. That way when I print it, it'll print nice. I'm going to move it around because it's covering over a little bit of my data right now, and I don't want that. So I'm going to go up here and say exponential. I just double clicked up there on that title. Exponential model for arm span versus height. There, see that one came out tall. If you don't like it, if you want it to show a little bit better, you can always kind of drag it wider, and then there'll be more space for your title. Okay, now we go down here, and we're going to have to add one more. So you right click, you can just scroll down, add trend line, and this time you want a polynomial. And you want power 2 because you want degree 2. Order means degree, and you want a squared one. You want a quadratic, right? If it was a cubic, you'd pick 3, but you want quadratic, so you want 2. Click on Display Equation, Display R Squared, close. And again, we want this bold and size 12. And I'm going to move that over by you kind of make the mouse hover over on the box so it becomes that 4-sided arrow, and then you can drag it along. And then I'm going to call this the quadratic model for arm span versus height. And that's all you have to do. Oops, click off on it. And again, if you don't want the fact that it shrunk my graph down to make room for the word height, so you can just kind of drag it bigger if you like. It won't hurt anything. All right, that's all you have to do. You have to have those 3 graphs. Now all you have to do is print them, and you're done. Now the easiest way to print them is to click on the graph. So let's click on the linear one first. Then you go to File, scroll down to Print, and you can see it says Print Selected Chart. See that as an option? And that's it. And you just click Print, and it'll print that chart on a page. Easy as that. Okay. And then you do it again. Click on the exponential one, File, Print, and Print Selected Chart, and it'll make that exponential one fit an entire page, and so on. And then do it again. File, Print. Oops, sorry, I got to scroll down to Print. There we go. That's it, right? So you'll print each one on whatever printer you like. So me, it'll be on my office printer. Now, there is one other thing you could do. If you don't want to print 4, because that'll be 4 pieces of paper. So you'll have 1 piece of paper for the table, 1 piece of paper for the linear model, 1 piece of paper for the exponential model. Now, if you don't want to do that and you want to try to fit it all on 1 sheet of paper, the way you're going to do it is, first of all, page layout. You're going to want to change it to landscape. Oh, it is landscape already. Good. Then you're going to want to go to File. Make sure you're not clicking. Oops, see, I'm still in a chart. Yeah, I'm still selecting this chart right here. See, it's on a box. I'm going to click over here. I'm going to go to File and Print and see what this looks like. All right, see how when I print, well, first of all, it's not portrait, or it's not landscape, it's portrait. So I'm going to click here on Portrait Orientation and click on Landscape. All right, you can see that the linear and the quadratic models are all getting kind of mushed, and this table is really huge because I made the fonts really big. So what I could do is say, okay, let me go back home. Let me make this smaller. And then see that dotted line right there? See that? That is a sheet of paper. So what you can do is you can fiddle around with your graphs and try to get them to squish onto a sheet of paper. But you don't want to do it too much, because if you do it too much, it'll make it so the graphs aren't really pretty, and you need them to show up nice and pretty for your instructor. So it's probably best not to try to cram it. Matter of fact, I don't think you should cram it on 1 sheet of paper, but you maybe could do 2. So I would do the linear model because that's the first model. So I'll put that on the same page as my data. Make it nice and big because you want it to print out really well. Don't make it small. You don't want it to be crammed. There we go. And then over on the second sheet of paper over here, I'm going to make it so that these graphs are a little bit more even. So this one's really crammed and small, so I'm going to kind of drag it. So I take it to the bottom right corner and drag it out. I'll make this one a little bit smaller and wider, and this one a little bit longer. Oops, I moved it instead of dragging it. There we go. So I'm trying to make it so that they match in size. There we have it. All right, so now I'm going to click off. They look pretty good. So when I go to File, I go to Print. Okay, so there's the first page. It has the data and the linear. And then I want to go to page number 2. So let's see. Oh, here it is. And that scroll bar right there. So the scroll bar. Oh, and down here it says page 1 of 2, page 2 of 2. So you scroll to the very, very bottom. So page 1, there's page 2. And so that would get everything done in 2 pieces of paper. But remember, don't cram it so tight. Don't do it in 1 sheet. You want to at least do 2 pieces of paper. And make sure that you can see these models really nice and big and bold. And everything is really labeled and clean. And then you print those and attach them to your project. That's it. That's how to do part 3. And you'll attach those printouts, either the 4 sheets of paper if you print each thing separately, or 2 pieces of paper if you print all 4 of them together on 2 sheets of paper. Don't do 1, do 2 at the very least. Make sure they're nice and big and pretty. And you attach them to the back of this packet, and then you fill the rest of the packet out and do all the work by hand using those models that you got from the computer. The one other thing I want to show you really, really quickly is the exponential model is a little bit different than what you guys are used to with your calculator. So do you see how it says e to the 0.0231? We're not used to that direction, and one of the things you're going to have to do is find what that is. So if you type equals exp, that's what e is in the computer, and 0.0231, enter, that'll be that number. Or you could just find it with your calculator, e to the 0.0231. You will need that for this question right here, question 8. So either use your calculator or Excel.